Welcome to the Dream Plan Start Grow Show, where the goal is to provide you tips and tools to create and execute your business plan for success. Welcome back to the Dream Plan Start Grow Show. My name is Allison Turner. I started these interviews because I love entrepreneurship. I believe we can learn from each other. Whether you're a brand new business, want to start a business, or a seasoned entrepreneur, check out the Dream Plan Start Grow Show to level up your game. Today, I'm honored to have with me Melanie Seal-Jones, a.k.a. Mighty Mel. She is a speaker and a business coach that helps with marketing and sales. But I really call her the definition of resilient. She has a very interesting and challenging story. So all of you business owners out there that see challenges in your way, you have zero compared to what she's gone through, in my opinion. So welcome. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
So tell me, we're going to go all the way back to the beginning of your journey, because you've been an entrepreneur for, what'd you say, 20 years?
Yeah, I started in 2003.
Wow. So what did you start doing in 2003?
Photography. And one of my friends came in. I just photographed my cousin's wedding. And he hated his photographer, but he loved my photos. And I went to art school. Oh, the first thing that I want to say is my English is a little bit wonky because I'm a stroke survivor and I have brain damage. So talking to me is like a game. And it'll be super smooth, all my words. I'm going to nail this English. I know it. Yeah. But it was just one of those times where one of our friends is like, why don't you do this for a business? And I was like, no, people aren't going to pay me to do graphic design and photography. They're like, didn't you go to school for that? I'm like, yeah, I was in the top of my class. They're like, oh. And my friend is like, okay, I sold you a wedding photography. You're going to charge $600. You're going to give them 8 prints and blah, blah. And he's like, this is exactly what you say. And don't do that stupid stuff. And I was like, don't minimize yourself. This is what you give them. And I said, okay. And I used to run sales teams, so I know how to sell stuff. But when this client called and I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And then he hired me. And then I was like, oh. And then because I was a graphic designer in 2003, it was super unique to have the photo black and white and one thing, like the colors, like the flowers are one color. So I could do that. And everyone's like, oh, wow. And so I got the first wedding. And then 6 other people hired me that first summer. And so that's how I started my business. And then every year my business doubled, but we flipped houses and I followed my boyfriend, who then was husband. So for 20 years, we flipped 13 houses, built 3 brand new houses into 6 cities while running my business. So I got really good doing marketing and sales when you have to run your business to 6 different towns and then convince your clients to come into your reno, which rings like this, where there's like renos everywhere. And you're like, yeah, I'm a high-end photographer. And they're like,
yeah, sure. Whatever you want to tell yourself.
I know sales and marketing. And they did. They fell in love with me. And I just loved it. Like I would go into a wedding and I had this goal that everyone in their everyone that would come to the wedding, I wanted all of them to know me and go home with a card to go onto my website. And I made sure I got a picture and an experience with every person there. And I just love marketing and sales. And it's been a big thing from running a business to, in 2012, I was the biggest wedding photographer in Vancouver, Victoria. And I had 6 employees. And my husband didn't know that I was making money. And I was like, well, love, like, I have 6 contracts who work for me. He's like, oh, they're not real they're not real because, and I was like, no, it's brilliant because I only have to pay them when I have work. And he was like, no, that's not a real business. And I was like, what? And I was like, I think you need to like look at the accounting. And so I brought him into my office and I was like, see this floor? Like I bought everything in here in cash. Oh, but you got good sales. And I was like, and I brought up the accounting and I showed up how much he made. And at that moment that I told him that I was making 6 times much as him, he like, and then he just turned around and walked away. And I was like, and so he went off to work and he came home and I was like, he came home and he was in the garage and I came with a beer and I was like, so like, how was your day? So what do you think about business? And he like just cracked. And it was like not being like him. And I didn't realize with a guy that you have to let them know, you have to give them a little time to let them know you make 5 times as much as them. and I decided to make myself small. So my employees messed up my business. My cousin died and I was depressed and I was so sad and everyone was going out crazy. So I just made myself small and I made sure that he never made any money. And I hid everything into the family. So we were flipping houses. We were renting at one time. We were renting 7 suites and I was managing that, plus doing graphic design and photography and making sure that I made no money, but our family made money. And then it was 2018 when I was running 3 businesses, solving every problem. And my husband was he would do really risky things. And I would come in behind as a wife who would come in and hide them and solve them and fix them and be like, oh, you did a great job. Look how great these big men are. Look how strong you are. And I came back just like, and it was in that moment where I was running 3 businesses. We borrowed $1.7 million, building 2 brand new houses, doing the biggest reno in my life, and running 2 other businesses, doing graphic design and photography, and making sure I make no money. And that's when my head exploded from the stress of running 3 businesses. And in that moment where my voice was taken away, I had a brain aneurysm. So it's the blood to my head exploded. And luckily, I was the healthiest in my whole life. We were building 2 houses and a reno when we couldn't hire people so I would do the jobs. I had the like muscles. I was a machine. So when my head exploded and luckily I was so healthy because they couldn't believe, like when they took me to the hospital and they're like, I can't believe she's still here. And they're like, well, if she makes the night, then we'll give her brain surgery, but don't expect anything. And they're like, and then, so I took the night. So they flew me to the next city. They flew me to a special flight to me to the next city to get surgery. And then someone else needed my surgery. So I had to wait 1 more night. And then, and then I woke up and, I couldn't move my body from my neck down. And I swear that I actually gave myself a stroke, which woke up my body, but deleted all my English, which is also hilarious as a salesperson getting your voice taken away. Like I couldn't read, hear, speak. I couldn't, no communication. I was just in my head and I have 5 words. And to that, I was like, I swear that I actually had a conversation between me and my subconscious about what things could be deleted. And I was like, and I'm like, you cannot tell my stories. I need them. I need my educated. I spent $150,000 on my education. And they're like, you can delete English. And I was like, I was horrible at English anyways. And I was like, oh, it was deleted. And then in the hospital there, I realized just before my head exploded, I was having one of those days where I was like 2 weeks to the end of everything going wrong. We just solved everything. We were like 2 weeks away, and I was manifesting and thinking about what my future. And that's when I was talking to my higher self, who's like, yeah, you can have everything you wanted, but do you want it to be fast or slow? And I was like, fast? And like, whoa, whoa, whoa. This is going to be the hardest thing you've ever done. And I was like, have you seen the projects that I've done? Like, no problem. And then that voice is like, scream or you're going to die. And I was like, what? And that's when I had the brain aneurysm, and I couldn't move my body from here down. And it was instantly, and I could feel time slows down, and I could feel my body. It was like 2 seconds, but my whole body was tingling and turning off. And I just did this. And luckily there was a door right in front of me, and I screamed and screamed and screamed. And then I was so tired. I was like, oh, I just can't take a nap. I'm like, okay, it's way easier to be an angel right now. But if you want to be alive, you need to scream. So then I screamed. And that's when my husband found me and all that. But then when I was in the hospital, the next part of that, I woke up in the hospital, not moving my body, having that stroke, waking up. And then from there to now, the last 5 years have been even bigger than that, even more smashes and falling down and getting up. Wow. And I think that entrepreneur, especially I'm 5'3", 120 pounds. So I'm a tiny little girl, right? And I think there's something about little that you always want to like prove them wrong. And that entrepreneur, right? They're like, yeah. And they're like, okay, Melanie, it's been 6 months. This is who you are now. You have about 25 words. One of your business, right? We know where this story's going, right?
Right.
And they're telling me, they're like, okay, one of your business is photography. You don't need a lot of English for that. So just be a photographer. And I was like, oh, there's a team of people telling me, oh, okay. But I couldn't stop crying. I was like so low. I like, it took all of my, to move into the sun. And I'm sitting in the sun crying, trying to tell the story of like, okay, they took your voice away. They came you to listen, you know. And I swear Zig Ziglar was standing beside me going like, really? You're not going to talk to anyone? I'm like, I'm just going to listen. They're like, you have a really good story. You should be on a stage. And I was like, yes.
25 words to the stage.
Right. And so I go into my speech therapist who's teaching me, who I have 25 words. So I come up to my speech therapist and I was like, she's like, what happened? You're glowing. And I was like, I cried, idea. And she was like, okay. And I'm like, and then I drew a picture of me on stage. I'm like Zig Ziggy. And there's like, who's that? Makes people happy. And she was like, you want to be a motivational speaker on stage and you have 25 words. Yeah, be good. Make people happy. She's like, do you know you're sick? I'm like, yeah, file. Oh, no. I saw your file. Your file's like this, like Melanie, like you're, and she actually told me, Melanie, you are going to fail. I'm so worried about your goal because your goal is too big and you're going to fail. And I'm so afraid that you're going to be afraid. And I'm like, I'm an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs are different. We dream big, right, massive dreams. Then you don't even care if you ever get there because the journey to that dream wakes you up every day. And when you met me, you just saw me on stage. Right. So like, that's Glenn Lundy, the best. What is his title?
The best speaker in the United States, I guess,
USA of the world. I'm pretty sure it's the world. Maybe like by the time people listen to them, he's going to be the world. Glenn Lundy, the speaker of USA. And so he had put me on stage when you saw me on stage, and I'm telling my story in front of 400 people. And I realized my dream is too small. The problem is my dream is too small. And that entrepreneur, right? Like life punches you down, like it's like you're going towards your goal. Like it feels kind of like you're running and there's that glass in front of you and you don't realize there's glass and you're like, whoa. And that's why we need to have that dream, because as you're going forward, you have to get back up and you have to get going again. And the bigger the dream, the more waking up and the focusing of helping people. And the whole reason I want to, the whole mission of being on stages and getting people to see me, because as a photographer, no one sees me. I can get everyone's attention, right? Yeah. But no one has to see me. And I can get everyone to, I love being in front of 400 people and they will do whatever I want as long as they look good. Like,
can you Photoshop me thinner?
Sure,
you've heard
gorgeous.
That.
It's all angles and light, right? But it's one thing getting everyone else to look good, but it's another thing to turn the camera around and be, I'm pretty sure when I see myself, I look like this, right? Like, it's and then this journey of being seen, being heard, and valuing myself. And then that's taken a whole nother level of realizing my dreamy husband doesn't respect me and doesn't, and then my kid, I'm still trying to figure out the story because my teenager, I have a child, an autism teenager, and angry and doesn't respect mom, and switching that around and standing up for myself with leadership of like, this is how we respect disabled people. This is how we treat people with leadership. And divorcing after 20 years and we're still talking every day and driving across Canada and this like, and now he's my dreamy ex-husband, right? Like, why not? That's what leadership and the best thing about entrepreneur is that you get to custom design your life. And it's the like, it of every storm, huge thing, getting reported, like whatever crazy thing that happens me, it's always my business that grounds me and that dream to save and help other people and to make the world a better place, because I truly believe, I know they told me running a business, your brain damage is too much. You cannot run a business. And the like entrepreneur, I'm like, that's the perfect place for an entrepreneur. They're like,
wow. Yeah. So, I mean, so I like a lot of what, I know the story to some degree. And then, what you just said of, you get the chance to custom design your life.
Yeah.
And obviously you had done that before when you started the photography, and then that morphed into, the graphic design, the renovating the houses. building
my
houses. That's your hobby. That's a big hobby, but
I know, right?
But doing all those pieces, and now then you had the 2018 aneurysm, stroke, and then now you are where you are today. And obviously you're still building, because I think as an entrepreneur, there's always something else we want to do. You get to whatever the goal is and you're like, well, now I got to go here. It's like, it's like the next step. But how have you overcome some of those challenges more recently since the stroke, to get back to kind of where you are now? Like, because obviously it's not only the speech, it's probably, and I'm just asking the question, is, putting pieces in place. Like, how easy is that for you of like, okay, what's the next step? Like, because before maybe it just came naturally of like, okay, yeah, here's my books, I do all this. And, just sounded like it flowed, versus I would suspect that it's a little tougher to compute all that now, and maybe a little slower than you want to move.
Oh, of course. As an entrepreneur, you want speed, fast, go. And it's always, you need to slow down to go faster, which I know it's right. And it pisses me off. But
I know, right?
and the humor of the universe giving me this body and these limits now. And so the entrepreneur, they're like, Melanie, you cannot run a business. And I was like, okay, tell me why. And then I make the list of exactly what I need to get over, right? And when I went from doing full time, so when I started doing photography full time, I was a professor at a college, and I was. I know, right? I was 28 and I was a professor at a college, and I was running the department. And I was doing photography and wedding photography, and I just gave birth. So I thought that is the perfect time, giving birth to a brand new baby, that you have 9 months with your kid. So why don't I just quit my other jobs and do photography full time? Because I had about 25 wedding photographers a year. So it's like, oh, okay, that's full-time alone. Anyways, I always had 3 jobs anyways. So that's when I run my business. And so you were talking about, so I've run a business for 20 years. At 10 years, I became a mom. So I had a new identity and completely challenges. But that baby had autism. So that's a whole nother level. So I started homeschooling and solving problems. And then when my kid was 3, they realized I actually make money, and I had 6 employees, and I had to hide myself. And so I get really good at changing my identity of who I am. So when I woke up disabled and I couldn't move my body, I couldn't read, understand, like, I was the person, when you run a business, like, we've got mortgages 20 times. And when we had a mortgage, it's about an inch thick, right? The contract. And I would read them and find the mistakes. And so I went from this person who could read them and find the mistakes to now sometimes I can't even read a sentence without understanding them. And so if you want to run a business when you have brain damage, you need to have no stress, because every stress emotion turns off my body. And it's like all the wiring from your brain to my body is all messed up. So just these normal things that people affect you, it affects you more when you have brain damage. So when I get an emotion, I get a wave of emotion, and I can't hide anything. like if something hurts my feelings a little bit, I'll go cry. I'm just like, just give me 5 seconds. I'm realizing as that professor, right? As a professor, you teach everyone, right? So that kind of mindset of like, okay, they made me a marketing salesperson. They gave me brain damage. I have these limits. And they teach me how to hide myself so no one can see my brain damage. And there is something that, and being a mom, right? You're always telling your kid to be yourself and not to hide yourself. And, but when you have a kid, they put you in your place, right? Because like, you have to model to your kid what you're doing. So, okay, I can't hide myself and use that marketing and sales. And like, it was so interesting. Like I went to the store because I like gardening and I needed to buy the feed for the plants, but you have to have the right plant to the right plants. But I didn't have English, right? So I came in and I was like, and I said, stroke, help. And she's like, okay. I'm like, need poop for plants, food for food plants. And she's like, what? I'm like, I need poop for, and they're like, compost. And I was like, yeah. The good one for the food plants. And she was like, and the whole room was laughing and joking at me, like trying to play these goals and like talking to me as like a game, right? And then I'm like, yeah, if you have any questions about stroke and survivor, like ask me. And so she put me to the side and she's like, I thought you were drunk. And I was like, what? She's like, and I was like, oh, I understand, right? Because I say nervous. I get loud. I get, and it was like, I understand why you think I look drunk. I don't feel drunk, but I act drunk. Right. And it's like this dance back and forth. And it's like, okay, if this is so hard for me and for me to see it from the highly educated to the dumb person who can do nothing and then back. And it's so interesting that the marketing and sales are so much more powerful because when I do marketing for people, I'm like, I can see it as a smart and a stupid. And
interesting.
It's so
you can market to both of those types of
right.
people then. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's like, I'm pretty sure there's a pretty funny joke that will come out of this of like, how smart you have to be marketing and sales. I don't know. But I love it. Like when I'm low and I'm sad, I'm like, I would go into businesses and I would sit in the corner and I would watch people come in and out and I would like move around their marketing and sales. And like, or I could watch the podcast and like people were selling programs and I was like, I would watch it like I'm watching a sport. I wanted to like cheer people. I'm like, whoa, that was an amazing sale. Woohoo! And I'm like, there's something wrong with me. But it's the good.
So you said that you have to, since the brain's got the kind of disconnection to the body or the frayed connections, they have to remain more stress-free.
Yeah.
Ideally.
Super easy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So what have you done? Because I know you just went through some stress since you referenced the divorce, you brought it up. I'll reference it, but I know you just went through some stress there, but like just in normal life, let's forget that for a minute. Like in normal day-to-day life, obviously each of us encounter, heck, if you go on the roads here in Delray, it's stressful just to drive between
there's stress everywhere.
The snowbirds and all the people here. So what have you done to help yourself kind of stay more grounded and less stressed?
Oh goodness. That is exactly what my business is and what I'm doing with the businesses are. And that's the unique part that I'm doing because we all have stress. We all have challenges. We all have things that happened. And it's great because when my clients come to me and they're like, oh, Melanie, I can't believe that happened. It's like, oh, that happened to me too. Like there's so many huge, massive things that happen in my life and every time something horrible things happens, I'm like, oh, this is going to help someone one day. Like, write and keep the notes. So if I wanted to just give you one tip to help with stress, simple and easy, is get curious. And it's your belief, right? Like my main belief is that every sucky things is we are rigged for a win. That this sucky thing that happens, we're rigged for a win. And when you believe you're rigged for a win, then your brain starts solving the problems, right? And the idea of when you're rigging, like when you rigged the sucky things that happens and you rig, and I imagine these image of pulling the black oil out and then you reframe it and you put in your vehicle and you drive somewhere good. Very simple, but it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tips and hacks and things to get frame it. But it's mostly the biggest thing is your belief.
Yeah.
There's a psychology study where they studied 10,000 people over 10 years. And they studied everything that they did from health and studies and everything. And the only thing that they could find is the belief within stress, is because the people that believe stress is good and driven us, they're healthy. The people that believe stress is unhealthy, they were dying 70% more. So if you believe stress is bad, you're dying 70% faster. I don't know how the the proper, I'm pretty sure these are like the perfect English that I'm doing with this, but it was a study that I had heard about. And I love psychology. So when a speaker would talk about stuff, I would find the original paper and I would read the whole thing. Like,
of course you would.
Yeah, I have a problem.
No, not a problem.
It's the good problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, I think that's interesting. I could see those statistics too. I mean, I could see, because I think we have a choice to reframe, like you said. We have a choice to tell ourselves what the story is, because so often we worry about something that we have zero control over.
Yeah.
I was just talking to Jack tonight before I got on with you, and one of my stepdaughter's friends, I guess she broke up with her boyfriend and she didn't have anywhere to sleep tonight. So she's staying in our house, and Jack's like, yeah, I'm worried about it. I said, but you don't have, it's not your problem to solve. I mean, we're giving her a place to stay for the night. She's supposed to try and figure out what she's going to do tomorrow. I don't know if she has family. I don't even know much about her, but you can't stress over something that we have zero control over, like none.
Oh yeah. Well,
giving her so I think that's it, because we stress over things that we have no control over. And then, that's when you start the dying process, or the, getting down. And then you start seeing things negatively because you attract more of that stuff to you.
Well, that's how our belief is, right? Like and it's one thing to reframe it, but it's really your belief. So if you believe stress is bad, it is bad. And so you need to get rid of it. But if you believe stress is driven and it gets you things done, because the right amount of pressure, that's how you get a sales, right? You need the perfect amount of pressure to get that sales.
Yeah.
And so knowing what your belief is, and then you need to know how to do it.
Yeah. And what is it? I guess diamonds are created, right, with the pressure.
Yeah.
So that's what they always say is like, pressure is good because diamonds get created with the pressure.
Yeah.
And I typically work better under pressure. But, if I have nothing to do, I'm like, I get nothing done because I'm like, oh, well, what do I want to do today? And you're like, nothing's on the calendar. You're like, oh, I could just, watch TV all day. And then that's what I do and then I get zero done. And then you hit the next day and you're like, I just wasted a whole day yesterday.
Well, Allison, that's the one thing that I know you like, because you've done those 75 hards and the 75, and you do them like they're like nothing. You're like, oh, I just did another one. Like you're eating another vitamin. Like you're a diamond. I'm sorry, you're a diamond.
I'll take it. I'll take the diamond. But, although I just did a little lapse in my phase 3, so I actually failed phase 3 and on day 21, so I was like not happy, but it is what it is.
Are you going to start it again?
Well, I have to actually go all the way back to the first day of 75 hard. Because phase 3 is the last phase, so it's like the final 30 days of the program. So
so you were 10 days away?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. That is so so many entrepreneurs do that, right? You're like, you did this huge thing and you're like this close. And so do you think it's sabotaging or do you just enjoy the journey so much that you're just like, are you going to start it again?
Yeah,
or are you going to be
I'm probably going to be doing this summer, but
yeah,
I had already thought I would start it again. I mean, just because I like the challenges. So, because I think it'll be easier this time because, you've been through it. And the toughest one was phase 3. And it was just, I didn't manage my time at the end of the night and I didn't realize what time it was. And I was doing like an eating plan of like a 10-hour window and I broke that 10-hour window by like 15 minutes or 30 minutes, that's what I broke it by. But I was like, oh yeah, I just ran out of time.
But that's amazing. Like, cause you could have just been like, oh, it's only 50 minutes. It doesn't count. But like that you have so much integrity that you would stop, even though you're 10 days away and you're starting thing again. To that, I'm like, I celebrate you. Like you are like, I love you. Just even more.
I definitely like the challenge, but and I realize that most people, because it's so interesting to me that people would look at say 75 hard, which to me is tough because it's 75 days of those items. But I mean, it's amazing to me how many people are like, oh, I can't do that. I like to have my glass of wine every night. I'm like, it's 75 days. I'm like, it's not like I'm asking you to do like a year-long program. It's a 75 day. So you wonder how people, especially if you have something big coming up in your business and you really have to like spend more time working than time with family or whatever else you do, like how do you do that then?
Yeah.
If you're not willing to give up, whatever. I mean, usually it was the alcohol that people are like, yeah, I could do the 2 workouts a day. I could do the, the diet but I'm not willing to give up my, my drink a night or whatever. And I was like, okay, you sure you don't have a problem? It's 75 days. So not, and even, phase 3, I think someone commented who she does CrossFit and she's like, yeah, I could do all of that except for the cold shower. It's like a 5-minute cold shower. I'm like, it's 5 minutes. I mean, it was probably my least enjoyable piece.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it's 5 minutes. And once you're in there like a minute, like you acclimate to it. So it's just like.
Well, Allison, you're a real entrepreneur because like you're willing to do the hard things to get the thing you at the end, right? And that's why less than 10% are successful, or if it's like 1 or 10%, I can't remember.
It's 10%. I mean, I think it's,
and
there's so many people that fail. Yeah, I mean, so many people fail in entrepreneurship after like 1 year, 5 years, and 10 years. And I think 10 years is like there's a small percentage that actually make it to that 10-year mark. But yeah, I mean, I don't remember if it's like half fail after the first year or the 5 year or something. I mean, it's a pretty big number. And I think it's just interesting because even when I've thought about, like even when there's been tough times and I'm like, okay, you could just go get a job, and you wouldn't have the stress. You could have like health insurance that we weren't paying like an arm and a leg for. You could have like vacation time and, all this stuff. And I'm like, no, don't do this. I don't see that happening. But, So yeah, I think it's that, that never say die kind of attitude of like, how do I get through this? Like, what's the next, you're at that fork in the road. Like, do you take this path or do you take this path or you just jump over the whole thing?
Where a lot of people wouldn't even start. Like I was looking at, everyone was talking that 75 hard. And I was like, okay. So I started looking it up and I started doing it and I realized I couldn't do the water. I couldn't drink that much water. And I looked up because I couldn't drink that much. And then I ran the numbers to how much water for your height and weight and stuff like that. And so I was like, which was a little bit less. I'm like, but I just couldn't. And I was like, okay, I'll do it, maybe later. Like, it's just not the time, but,
right.
But the fact that a lot of people won't even start being an entrepreneur. Right. So the fact that you tried and you failed and you get up and you do it again and you do it again and then again and then again.
Yeah. I mean, I had several people on as guests that, where they failed and either, might have failed in a first business. Actually the person I released today on the audio side, I'll release the video probably tomorrow. He had started a store, like a retail store many years ago. Like he had invested money, he'd gotten money in real estate. He invested and he pulled it all out of real estate and he put it in like a retail store, had no plan per se, Then he talks about this and he's like, yeah, that didn't really work, and, now he's doing something completely different, but but he learned from that experience of like, okay,
oh yeah,
what not to do and what, because it's all when you hit that roadblock, it's like, okay, what lesson can I learn from this and where can I use that to kind of move forward and make it better the next step.
Yeah. Well, and that's the entrepreneur, right? Like every fail, it gives these muscles. And I swear that like, it would be amazing to see our like, like you can see these kind of muscles, but I wish you could see like the brain muscles. I'm like, oh yeah, look at those. Like, and we get these, do you ever sometimes feel shamed about things or when you fail and then you realize how many amazing things that happened and the muscles having a teenager and determined and like every opportunity and failed. And when you come into it like a scientist, right? Of like, we need to figure this out to like, ooh, let's get curious. So let's see this like, oh, and like, oh, the person running my business is a con artist. Awesome. Luckily, I just like I noticed before the 100,000 went into their account. Like, oh, okay, that's curious. And to move through with integrity and use those leaderships to move through them. And right. I love these, it's almost like when I'm going through them and there's so much stress and so many crazy things going on, it's like I have this ability to strip the emotion and sort of stand beside and look down and be like, ooh, this is curious. I'm like, ooh, like what kind of muscles am I going to have? But I always think about things different than most people. Like when I was watching my 9-year-old, seeing me for the first time, I just got out of a coma and they took all these machines out and my kid was so nervous and walking towards me and she walking up and I could tell my kid was so nervous. And so I'm hilarious. So when my kid walked up, I was like, your mom's a robot. I was like, look at the machines. I'm going to live forever. She's like, Mom, that's not how it works. And I was like, come on, this is hilarious. She's like, you're messing me up, Mom. Like, messing me up good. I was like, come on, she still doesn't think that's a funny story, but I think that's hilarious.
Oh yeah,
goodness.
So now you're working you're speaking, you're doing the business coaching. I know, or at least I've heard some of your stuff on social media that are you trying to attract like other entrepreneurs that have disabilities to help them in the sales and marketing space?
I'm doing marketing and sales for regular startup businesses. That's my favorite. Like people just starting up their business are my favorite. And so I'm not focusing on disabled people, but I want to educate the world about brain damage and the things going on. Like there's so many misunderstand and like people thinking I'm drunk and like hiring a lawyer to do a contract so I can get separated. And he gives me 32 pages of, and I'm just like, there's so many misunderstanding or, and like a simple thing, like if you're talking to a client and you think they're drunk, if you just slow down your words and they don't look drunk anymore, they probably have brain damage, because brain damage is so embarrassing. Like I can't even control my mouth. I can't even control my body. If I have stress, I can feel hot and cold, but I can't tell how much, so I burn myself. Or and because I had aphasia from neck down, and I had 3 different types. I have neck down and then right side to left side. So like my left side is a jerk. It's a total jerk. The left side, if I'm pushing myself too much, it will pick a random muscle and give me 10 out of 10 pain, and I'll throw me on the floor like with crazy pain. And I have to meditate and do nothing to take the pain away. Where the right side gives me a needles first, and then it will slowly turn something apart. So that I can't, and so that I really look drunk, or I drop things, or with people talk to me, I hear wah, wah, wah. And sometimes it's just random numbers. Like I can't hear numbers and names, but I can hear the rest of the sentence. So it's hard when I'm flying and they don't have a brain damage button. So they're like, so I click, I have a disabled is hearing. And then they come thinking where to sign. And I was like, oh, brain damage. And they're like trying to explain things and then making people, that marketing part of making people feel comfortable. Be like, okay, talking to me is like a game. This is super fun. And they're like, oh, okay, I can deal with brain damage. And that mission of like, okay, if people can see my brain damage and share how I'm doing it and the tools to do it, and for people to hire me and to accept my limits and that my mess up words, and the people that like having brain damage, I'm too honest. And it's super interesting when you're 100% honest, they feel super uncomfortable. Like they don't like being too honest, but the clients that pick me love it. And they're like, Melanie, stop editing yourself. I like it. And I'm like, okay, great. And it's so beautiful how we try to make ourselves perfect and make us what we're supposed to be. And really what the world needs us is them. Exactly how you are. And this idea of like, because you woke up today is because we need you just like you. You can get better. Like you can be better, but you.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Oh, that's great. I mean, I think that's powerful, because each of us, I think people try to be, they put that mask on, whatever that it looks like. And, and, oh, this person wants me to be like this, or this person wants me to be like this, instead of like, no, they just want you to be you. And some people are not going to like you, and that's okay. Not negative, not in a bad way. Just, they're not going to resonate. They're not going to resonate with you. Let me say it that way. That'll be a nicer way to say it.
Yeah.
But, not going to resonate with you, and that's okay. And you and I do similar things. I love working with startups too, but I'm going to work with, there's plenty of business in the world, and, some are going to resonate more with you and some are going to resonate more with me, and that works. so people have to find that right fit.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's so true. So as we start to wind down, I always ask this one question of everyone, and that is, if you were going to give one tip to someone who wanted to start a business that maybe you learned along the way, or maybe you knew when you started, what would that one tip be to help someone starting a business like accelerate a little faster?
Yeah. For me, and I work with specifically mothers and thems that have families, right? And as when you have the female brain, everything's connected, right? Where the guys, they have more boxes, right? And I freaking love that they can just have a box and it's very simple. Where women, everything is connected. And so if I could, like, the biggest tip that you can be starting up a business, of course, I want to give you 10 of them. But
I've had other people that want to do that. Yeah, give me two. Go to two.
Yeah.
Not 10.
But I'm a woman, right? So it's one, but it's actually two. And you have that dream, and then you have to get your team on the mission with you. So that mission, you have your partner and your kid. Everything needs to be on that mission. And if you can do that, you can successful. But if you don't have the whole towards your mission, and they don't believe in your mission, it won't work.
Yeah, no, I think that's 100% true. I've talked to, I think everyone I've talked to or had on the show who's had, a partner and any children, or even a partner, like, they've always been supported by those people. I don't think I've had anyone that's been like, oh yeah, my, wife or husband didn't support me at all. But yet I was still successful, so I think that's so true. If anyone had any questions specifically for you, or wanted just to reach out and learn more, maybe have you as a speaker, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, if you Google #MightyMel, then you'll find me on the different platforms. I'm mostly on Instagram. That's the one to find me the most. If you go The Mighty Melanie, but if you look #MightyMel, you can find me.
Okay.
And can I ask you a question of, like, because I think it's interesting, because we're both business coaches, we're both women, we're both do marketing and sales, and I love we're not, I think it's so interesting that we're not supposed to compare each other, but I'm like, well, it's our job to help people to sell, right? I would love to be like, okay, this is why you're going to pick Allison, because Allison freaking is amazing. She is a powerful woman. You've been doing this for so many years. Like, your voice, you're so grounded, you're so smart, you're so organizing. Like, you worked, like, both of us determined, but I wouldn't do the 75 hard. Like, so if you're a mom who likes playing games, and people who have young kids can understand my English, but if you have a hard time with English, you want Allison. Allison has these big, beautiful words. Like, I do not. So how would you, because that's our job, right? Help them to buy. So why would they pick you versus me? Or is that bad that I'm doing that?
I don't even know, because I don't really, I know who you are, but I think, each of us has a different probably method of how we work with someone.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, I think people initially resonate with a person, especially in the coaching world. They either get referred, or they see something you're doing on social media, or they reach out. And then obviously they've already so it's kind of a warm lead, for lack of a better word. And then that, it's your job to then share with them kind of how you can help them, as it would be my job. So I think that's really I think it's the resonating first, though, because, if we were, if someone watched this podcast, down the road and said, was looking for a business coach, I think someone would resonate with one or the other of us initially. And maybe they'd like both, but they might be like, yeah, I like Melanie a little more. I like Alice. I mean, and they may talk to both of us. But if
and
they
it's
have
not that
little...
one is better than the other. It's the right
just...
voice for you. And it's
exactly.
so interesting is like sometimes certain voice, like I've found in my books, I found this note and I found it 5 different times from multiple different person. But I swear you need to hear the right voice at the exact right time. Yeah. And yeah.
Exactly. So to me, it's more that, and then, how someone delivers whatever you're doing. I mean, I go a little bit more strategically. I don't even know how you do it, so I can't speak for it, but then I tie it into, because my company also does the branding and the websites and the automation and like all that side of things, that we can do. So especially for a startup, like we can tie that into, building that all out. So they kind of come out of it with everything, but,
and you make it look so simple. It's wonderful. That's part of your magic.
Doesn't look simple from in here, but I'm glad it looks simple from out there. That's the whole thing is like,
yeah, right.
Trying to manage like 8,000 things at once. And you're like, as long as it looks simple out there, that's good.
Exactly.
It's not simple in here.
You're behind puzzling all those, like, doing 5 million things.
8 or 9 o'clock and you're like, okay, I still have a list of like 8,000 things to do, but that's okay. I got to go sleep.
Well, you just love it, eh?
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you
for
much.
joining me today. I appreciate it. Always like chatting with you. I know we've chatted on the phone and on, back and forth and things like that. So I always like catching up. So it was great to catch up in more of an interview setting today and learning a little bit more about your journey. I think I knew much of it, but there were a couple of things I didn't know in there. So always learn something from my guests. And thank you everyone for joining the Dream Plan Start Grow show. I love working with new business owners or those who want to start a business. So if you have any questions for me, you can go to dreamplanstartgrow.com. I do offer a complimentary consultation. You can schedule on my calendar right there, and I can see what I can do to help, or if someone else is a better fit, I'm happy to direct you in that way as well. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Melanie.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Dream Plan Start Grow podcast with Allison Turner. If you like what you heard, make sure to subscribe and leave a review. Join the Dream Plan Start Grow community by following us on Facebook or Instagram @Dream Plan Start Grow. See you in the next episode.